Welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast, show number 110, where we interview Purple from A Purple Life and hear how she systematically increased her income every year while decreasing her spending and boosting her savings and net worth. Purple is set to retire next year at age 30, so we'll hear what that looks like to her too. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Mindy Jensen, and with me, as always, is my stupendous co-host, Scott Trench. Scott and I are here to make financial independence less scary, less just for somebody else, and show you that by following the proven steps, you can put yourself on the road to early financial freedom and get money out of the way so you can lead your best life.
Wherever you are in your financial or life journey, you can begin rapidly moving towards a position capable of generating a great income, saving a huge percentage of that income, and setting yourself up to make larger and larger investments on your way to financial freedom. Whether you want to retire early and travel the world, go on to make big-time investments in assets like real estate, or start your own business, we'll help you build a financial position capable of launching yourself towards your dreams.
Scott, I am so excited that we finally got together with A Purple Life, or Purple from A Purple Life. I have been tag teaming her back and forth, and I'm super excited to share her story today because she has a story of both, like kind of the best of both worlds, significantly increasing her income while significantly reducing her spending, while not feeling deprived or feeling left out or feeling all the other things that everybody says is so bad about financial independence.
Yep. Great story here. Very repeatable story. I mean, she starts out making $35,000 in Manhattan, New York City. I clarify that because I know someone who lives in Manhattan, Kansas, which is a very different expense profile than Manhattan, New York. But for the vast majority of people who know that I'm referring to Manhattan, it's a very expensive place, and making $35,000 a year in 2012 is not very much, and just an incredible effort on every major front from A Purple Life to be able to retire by 30 years old.
Yes. What struck me the most about this episode is the fact that she wasn't afraid to leave a job to get a higher paying job. And I think a lot of people have heard the advice, the career advice, don't job hop, stay at a job for, 2 years so it looks like you're dedicated and all of that. But, at one point in the show, she says, I left this job because it was a toxic experience and my health was suffering. Absolutely give her so many kudos just for leaving, because it's so easy to say, well, I don't have anything else. I don't have any money. It's easy to feel so beat down during that time that you don't even have the energy to go look for another job.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, that's a huge part of the equation here. And really the focal point, I think, of this episode is really, I mean, she made choices on the expense front, of course, that made a huge impact, but it's really the career advancement that she got there. And I think there's a lot to take away from that.
Yes, absolutely. Purple from A Purple Life. Welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast. I'm so excited that we finally connected. And when I say finally connected, that makes it sound like it was your fault when it was 100% my fault. So apologies for that, but I'm so glad we are finally able to connect. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are y'all doing?
We're doing great. I'm so excited to hear your story because when I looked at your overview, it seems like you weren't really paying attention to finances in the beginning of your employment career. But then something switched and you decided to start paying attention to it. And once you start paying attention to it, all of a sudden, your net worth grew, I would say, exponentially. So let's get into your money story. Where does it start and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, my money story starts when I was a kid, and I was originally being raised by a single mom. And I knew that we didn't have a lot, but we weren't struggling necessarily. But what was really great is that my mom has always been open about money with me. So in the beginning, I was paid $1 per chore. And when I went to collect, she gave me 70 cents. And I was like, what? This isn't what we agreed to. And she's like, oh, taxes and Social Security. I said, what's that? No, where's my money going? So from a young age, I was learning stuff about finances already. And then my mom got remarried when I was 8. And I had been stuffing away all of my chore money. And I actually became a bank for my step siblings, and my stepbrother still owes me $50. So with interest, I feel like I'm a millionaire, but I just need to get my hands on that money that he owes me. I'll bring it up next time I see him.
Yeah, Bob.
Right, Bob. And I also just found money fascinating. My aunt and uncle lived abroad for a lot of my childhood. And then when they asked me what I wanted them to bring me, they were like, what a weird kid, because I asked them to bring me foreign currency from where they were living. I just found it really cool. And then I would see my mom paying her bills and balancing her checkbook back to when that's what we did. And I was like, can you teach me how to do that? So then I started paying her bills at like 12 years old because I found it fun. So straight up weirdo from the beginning. And I always just found money really interesting, and the fact that it's pieces of paper that we agreed have a certain amount of meaning, and it's just about trust. It's really strange.
So what did your balance sheet look like going into high school and college? Did you work in high school, and did you work in college? Did you go to college? I guess I should ask that question first.
I did go to college, and I worked in high school as a receptionist for my high school, actually. And then in college, my mom actually told me, maybe I'd even say forbid me from working, because she wanted me to really focus on my grades and getting through everything, which is fair, because my partner did work during that time, and it does make things a little harder when you have less time to focus on your studies. So my money in high school, I made a couple $1,000s. It wasn't wild. I just used that to go to movies with my friends and all that stuff. And then in college, my mom would give me like $20 a month or something so I can go out, since I don't have a job. But since I didn't have any income, I just squirreled it away, like 99% of it. And so when she said, oh, do you need more money? I was like, no, I'm good. I have all of it that you gave me before, $20 a month. She's like, are you not living your best life? What are you doing? Like, there's nothing to do. Like, I'm studying. I don't care about going out to eat. It's fine. And also, this is my little emergency fund. I don't have any income. So that's what my money story looked like coming out of college. With all that high school money and saved from college, I had about $5,000. And that's when I moved straight from the graduation line, actually, to Manhattan, and started my first job the day after graduation.
Did you have any debt whatsoever?
I did not. I was really lucky. My mom has never really spent lavishly on anything except for her children's education. And I actually asked her not to pay for my college education. I went to a private school, very expensive, but she wanted to. And I think that had to do with she actually got into a really prestigious college and wasn't able to go because of finances. That's what I suspect. But when she hears this, she'd be like, that's not why.
Well, you have to let us know what she said. And I'm going to correct you. The next time somebody says, do you need money? You say yes. If somebody wants to give you money, you allow them to give you money.
No, there's so much guilt associated with it. Even 10 years later, she could have retired. She did retire at 55, but she could have retired at like 50 or less if she hadn't paid for my college, probably.
Okay, I'm going to correct you again. This is Mindy and Purple fight the whole time.
Let's do it.
She retired at 55. I don't know if you've read the internet, but people are not retiring anymore. They can't retire. They're having to work until the day they die. So the fact she retired and 10 years early is amazing. She chose to put you through college. It's a gift. Just say thank you.
I am saying thank you. And that's also one of the reasons I'm trying so hard to retire soon. So I do have more time to spend with her, since she did give me that gift that definitely cut years off of my working career.
That's a huge gift she gave you. Okay, so thanks to Mom. Purple Mom, you are the best ever. So you just graduated from college, and you went from the graduation line to, I'm sorry, I missed that.
Manhattan.
To Manhattan. Okay, so Manhattan is super cheap to live, so you were just able to save.
Exactly. Super easy life.
Yeah.
No, I started my first job at an ad agency downtown. I was living in a one room of a house at the very last stop of the A train, the northernmost tip of Manhattan, the farthest you can go. And I was making $35,000 and paying that rent. And then a couple months later, I moved in with my partner and a roommate slightly further downtown for a lot more rent. And so I was spending, I think it was $1,500 a month, which it takes a lot out of my little $35,000, especially taking into account the very high state and city taxes on top of federal that New York has. So I was scrounging. I ate a lot of literally beans and rice, lots of spaghetti, didn't go out to eat for, I think, at least 6 months at all. But we made it work. And after about a year, I actually quit because it was a really toxic environment and it was taking a toll on my health. And my partner and my mom were like, nothing's worth this. Just quit. Like, you'll find something else. I was like, it's my first job. I don't know. I have no skills. But I quit. And hilariously, after I gave my 2 weeks notice and it was my first Monday of freedom, I got a call when I was on the elliptical at 9 a.m. saying I have a job, which was a promotion, and it was for $48K.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to just double back and hear you say that again. I quit because it was a toxic situation and nothing is worth that. I have a job that is not toxic at all. I love it very much, but I have worked wherever that job was that you worked, where it was horrible and every day you dreaded going in. If you are listening to this show and you have a job that gives you ulcers and stress and causes all sorts of shenanigans in your life, start looking for a new one. You have Purple's permission, you have my permission, and you have Scott's permission, even though he hasn't even chimed in yet, to get a job that makes your heart sing every single day. Okay.
Yes, I totally agree with that. With your $35,000 a year job that was toxic, how long were you there for again?
A year.
A year, okay. And were you able to save up any, accumulate any wealth during that period, or did you have to take on debt, or what did you come out of that year with financially?
So one of the great things that my mom instilled in me was to invest as soon as possible. She actually didn't start investing at all in stocks until she was 30 years old, and she's still retired at 55. So she told me, like, you have a job now, start going to your 401k. I had no idea what funds to use. She was actually using a slightly sketchy financial advisor at the time, and he gave me less than ideal advice. But the tax savings on that 401k still did help me. So at the end of that 1 year, I had $20,000 saved, mostly just in that 401k somehow. And the market was obviously going wild and coming back on an upswing. But yeah, I didn't really do anything, and yet I still saved some money in wild New York.
So you made $35,000. You spent $1,500 a month in rent, which is $18,000, which leaves you with $17,000 left over. And because the market went up, you were able to still invest and generate $20,000 in wealth by the end of that year. What year was this?
2012, and that's total 20,000. So I left college with 5, so really 15,000 saved. Yeah.
Awesome. So you probably saved up a few $1,000s and made a big return on a lot of that as well.
Exactly.
Okay, great. All right. So things change. You go from 35 to 48,000. How you start that job immediately upon transitioning effectively. What happens for you next?
Then about 10 months later, I actually got laid off, which is very common in ad agencies. Churn is real. In fact, if people are somewhere for more than 2 years, they're like, why are you still here? What's going on? It's so common for people to come and go. So I got laid off, and I had actually already been talking to a friend of mine that was a receptionist at the first job that moved into recruiting. She'd called me saying, so I think this job works for you. It was a promotion. It was $65K. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for another promotion. I roll my eyes at myself now. Imposter syndrome is real. And I interviewed for it. I got it. And then hilariously, 3 weeks later, I got laid off again.
Oh, man.
Wait,
oh, wow.
They hired you and then laid you off 3 weeks later?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ad agencies. So fun. But it all worked out because I had coffee with a woman that knew my cousin from a Portland ad agency, actually, all about networking. And I emailed her like, you won't believe what just happened. I just started at X agency and they laid me off after 3 weeks. She's like, what? do you want to come to my agency? I was like, oh, okay. And then she was the one I negotiated with. So I was like, I want $65K. I want this title that I just gotten the promotion for. And she's like, oh, we'll see what we can do. Got it. And then I stayed at that agency for a year and a half, or a little under 2 years. And I actually changed roles within that agency because, once again, it was toxic. But I felt comfortable asking, can I go to another client even though you hired me for this client? Because they're the worst. And she said yes. So I got a much better environment. And then I also got a slight raise to $68K. And that's when I decided to go for financial independence, actually.
Okay, great. So this is a turning point. It sounds like you discover FI around this time after your year and a half to 2 year stint at the third ad agency, or the fourth. Yeah,
there's a lot of them.
So what's your balance sheet? As Mindy mentioned earlier, what is your situation in terms of wealth at this time, and what year are we at?
So going all the way back, we got the second job at, it was 2012. I had a net worth of about $20,000. Then I got that $65K job in 2013, and I had $30,000. This is still not intentional saving, still doing the 401k. I rolled it over. And then in 2014, I got that slight raise to $68K. And I had a net worth of about $50,000. And that's when I decided to go for financial independence. I actually learned about it 2 years before that from my partner. And I am sad to say that I ignored him for 2 years. But when I did get that less toxic job where I was making 68, I actually thought it was my dream job because I had a complete checklist of what that dream job would be. And it hit all the marks. And I still didn't want to get up on Monday and go to work. So I was like, okay, maybe this alternative financial independence retire early thing is something I should look into.
Love it. So can you start us from the beginning of the discussions with your partner? How did that transpire at first? And it sounds like you didn't listen. Can you walk us through that?
Yes. So he actually learned about FIRE from Reddit. He was on the Our Personal Finance subreddit, and then that led him to the Financial Independence subreddit. And I'm pretty sure he just sent me a link to either that or a early post from Mr. Money Mustache. And back then, there weren't as many FIRE blogs at all, and a lot of them looked very similar. White male programmers, basically. And then I read a couple posts of Mr. Money Mustache, and he was talking about punching people in the face for doing stupid stuff with their money. And I was like, what? And sorry, Pete, love you. Very, very nice to meet you that one time. But it wasn't the best introduction for me. And I was kind of taken aback. And I was like, what is this? I don't want to not spend money. Why not? I just earned it. I'm in Manhattan. Like, shouldn't I be living my best life, as they say? And so, yeah, it didn't hit me the right way. And I didn't give it a fair shot as a result. So that's on me. And then 2 years later, when I had already told myself, I just need that dream job, they're wrong. Like, I just need to be happy at work, like everyone says, and then everything will be perfect. And I'll want to keep working until I'm 55 like my mom, and then I'll retire early and it'll be fine. Why do I need to speed up the timeline? And then I realized I still wasn't fulfilled with that dream job. I still was looking out the window, thinking of all the things I could be doing in the world that I could be seeing. And I was like, okay, I concede. I'll look into this deeper. And then I realized my preconceived notions were wrong. It's not about deprivation. It's not about giving up your happiness now for later. There's a balance that can be struck. And so I dove in.
Love it. So I have two lessons from your story here, right? One is, if you're trying to convince your partner to pursue FIRE, don't position it as face punching or any other kind of big negative. Don't paint their current outlook or the way that most people do it as ridiculous in there, because you're likely to turn folks off. And then two, if your partner is not on board with things and you're just patient and politely bring up the subject from time to time without pressing it, you may create a change downstream, or find that they will come around to it downstream. What do you think about that? Are those fair takeaways from this?
I think that's completely fair. And I do know that our situation is a little unique because we don't combine our finances at all. So I understand that he was patient because it wasn't like I was spending wildly while he was trying to save and retire early. he was really like, no, I just gave you some advice. And if you don't take it, I'm still going to do this. So it's cool. And I know that can be hard when you have combined finances like that.
Nope, makes perfect sense. All right, so what changes in 2014 when you decide to go after it?
Well, our first thing was that I looked at my biggest expenses, which were Manhattan rent, and also, I didn't know at the time, but taxes. And then we created a spreadsheet of where we should move based on a couple of criteria, salaries, overall cost of living, standard of living, weather, access to public transit. I've never owned a car. I'm never planning on it. Access to international airports, that kind of stuff. And Seattle won.
So was this a discussion or was this like a research project?
Both.
No, fair. Okay. Did you like list out criteria and make a spreadsheet or something?
Oh yeah. It's color coded. It's beautiful.
Awesome. All right. So you create this research project spreadsheet with your partner about where to live, which is awesome, by the way. And you settle on Seattle. Love it.
Exactly. And we settled in Seattle because we realized that the salaries are about the same as New York, which I had no idea about. And the cost of living is about half. And then when we got here, we basically reduced our rent in so much that we went from a studio apartment to a lovely 1-bedroom, and saved about a little over $600,000 a year, almost $7,000 a year just with that. And then with the state and city tax savings, that was over $10,000 a year. So just those two changes, I went from spending about $35,000 in New York to about $18,000. And that's where I am now.
One of the things that I think people who live in New York love about New York is the amount of things to do and the spending on those types of things. I'm gathering that those were not important to you. Is that right? You weren't going out all the time and dropping $100 on brunch or whatever it is those New Yorkers do?
I actually was doing those things.
All right. Fair enough. Good. I'm glad I asked. Okay.
Not $100 on brunch, though. Well, probably close because those bottomless brunches can get pricey. But I absolutely love eating. And so I used to spend hundreds of dollars a month on just eating out. I rarely cooked. I would buy lunch out, breakfast, and then also want fancy dinners. Like restaurant week was huge for me. And I think those are like at least $50 a pop before drinks or taxes or anything like that. Tip.
Okay. So your main expenses were rent and food then?
Yep.
Because I'm just wondering how you were able to save so much on so little if you weren't cutting back on food. Was there basically nothing else that was major contributor to your expenses?
So I did cut back on food. When we left New York, I started seeing that my food budget or my eating out budget was decreasing because I did start teaching myself to cook. So I went from like hundreds of dollars a month to in 2015, I averaged $175, 2016, $140, 2017, $50 a month. 2018, it was $60, and last year it was $57. So it just kept going down, down, down as my skills got better. I also started eating keto, and that made me realize that I can get a lot more meat and fat at home for a lot less. And I actually prefer it because I'm a serious introvert. So like having a dinner party is my dream instead of meeting 20 people at a restaurant. It sounds kind of like a nightmare. So that was something I decreased kind of unintentionally. I didn't have that goal because going from $200 to $50 a month, that's not a huge change. And the other thing I changed was my phone bill. I used to have an iPhone and pay $90 a month for that privilege. And then I switched to Republic Wireless. And at that time, they were $15 a month. And nothing changed in my life. I just had to learn an Android, which was fairly simple. But that was fairly big savings. But other than that, no, I didn't really change much. It was just that move across the country. I have possibly, I'd say, a better life for a lot less money.
How did your quality of life diminish? Because clearly if you're not doing all of the things, then you're having a horrible life. I really liked what you said. It's not about deprivation. And it doesn't sound like you're depriving yourself. You just don't pay all that rent, right? I mean, that's, you really haven't, I don't want to diminish your changes, but you haven't made any big changes. I mean, except moving across the country, I guess some people might think that's a big change. I've actually moved a ton in my life and that's no big deal for me, but I do have a hard time relating to people who have lived in the same place forever. And they're like, oh, I could never move. It's like, I moved Tuesday and I'm going to move next Tuesday. Like I just move all the time. So that's awesome. You're making more money by following your passion and following your bliss and getting rid of these toxic workplaces. What year are we up to now? 2015?
We are up to 2015.
Okay. So what happened in 2015?
Oh, goodness. What did happen in 2015? Okay.
Consult your spreadsheet. Every time anybody says, oh, so I made a spreadsheet, I smile because that's like the theme with every guest we've ever had. I think there's been 2 that didn't do spreadsheets and everybody else is like, I put every bit of my life into a spreadsheet and it's great. I can analyze all sorts of things. And, you know, I know you listening are thinking the same thing. I do that too.
No, I do love my spreadsheets. I have way too many of them. They bring me joy.
No, you don't. You have just the right amount.
So 2015, we were packing up to leave New York. We decided on Seattle. My partner had actually never visited before. He had only been to San Diego on the West Coast. So this was about to be interesting.
Oh, they're slightly different cities.
It's just the literal opposite in the US. And I was trying to find a job in Seattle while still in New York, which I had heard is difficult. But I'd already quit my job a couple months before we were leaving just so I could get everything ready and packed and give away most of our stuff and move it and all that. And I was extremely lucky that for the first time in my life, I applied to a place online. They got back to me, and then they hired me over Skype.
Yay!
It was ridiculous. And that job, I asked for 85 and I got it.
Wonderful. So huge raise moving across the country with that.
Yes, indeed. And so by the end of 2015, we had just settled in Seattle. I was still at that 85K job and my net worth hit $90,000. And this is after I am trying to max out my 401k. I'm trying for the first time to have a traditional IRA and max that. I think I did max it the first year. And then if I have anything left over, I was starting to squirrel it away in taxable accounts as well. So it's starting to get serious.
Love it. So, all right. That explains the asset allocation, the income, and the expenses all right there. Mm-hmm. So how do things go the next couple of years?
So 2016, about the same. In June of that year, I got laid off. Big shocker. Here we go.
Oh, no.
It happens, guys, so often. And I was about to quit, so I was really happy about that.
That's really great.
Mm-hmm. I was super happy. So I think I took a couple of months off. I was just chilling and traveling around for a while. But then November of that year, I got my current job and I started at 103. And at the end of 2016, I had $137,000. And then this is when my spending in 2017 finally hit its current level, which is $18,000. In 2016, it was about 22. And by the end of 2017, with that 103 job, my net worth hit $234,000. In 2018, I got a slight raise and started making 106. And by the end of the year, even though we had that little correction, I was at $280,000. And then not this year, in 2019, I got another slight raise to $110,000. And at the end of the year, my spreadsheet is not up to date. One moment. How embarrassing. At the end of 2019, I had $448,000. And as of this recording, I'm at $466,000.
Okay, so I just want to rewind back to 2012. Your net worth was $20,000. Mm-hmm. And in 7 years, your net worth went from $20,000 to $448,000.
Yep.
simply by not giving up anything that was important to you, making a conscious decision to live in a place that did not cost $15,000 a year in extra taxes and rent. And you're still as happy as you were then, I'm assuming. That's kind of
Happier.
a leading question. Happier because you have $448,000 in the bank at the end of last year. And then it's January, so there's a nice little bump up.
Well, let me ask you this. The big story here to me is your income tripling over this time period, right? Like that's I think what allowed you to accumulate the hundreds of thousands of dollars in excess of what you were accumulating the first couple of years, even with the new focus on FI. You started your career at $35,000 a year in Manhattan, which is not a high income, I imagine, in that line of work. Is your career track what you would consider repeatable for other folks, or and it's fair to say either way on this? Do you think you're an exceptional performer that really crushed it here?
I don't think I'm exceptional, and I do think it's repeatable if you are willing to take some risks. Like half of the time I did get laid off, so I was kind of forced out of the nest, but the other half I quit. I quit even when I had what I thought was my dream job to move across the country. So that was terrifying, to be honest. I didn't know if I would be happy across the country. I didn't know if I would find a job I enjoyed. I didn't know anything, but I tried it. And then also I've always loved doing research, a lot of research before any job interview. So I know what the market rate for promotion is. I know what it's supposed to be in different cities. And so I ask for it. And I'm very strict with if someone comes back and says, oh, well, actually, that's out of our range. I say, okay, but I'm going to move on. Thank you for telling me. So I don't waste my time if they can't meet me where I know I should be making that money. And then obviously all the job hops help a lot. Most of my friends are still their same comfy job, not taking risks, which is fine. But then they complain to me that they can't save any money because they're making the same amount that they did 5 years ago. So yeah, I think it's definitely repeatable if you want to take that risk.
Let me ask you this. You saved up 20 the first year. You're able to save up 15 grand ish on top of your 5 that you came out of college with. And that was at the $35,000 a year job. Were you more comfortable than maybe your peers working the same line of work because you had been able to save up money on that? Do you think that influenced your decision? Or maybe you saw that your peers were living paycheck to paycheck and too scared to make that leap?
I don't think it did at that point, just because I think all of that money was in my 401k besides the $5,000. So I didn't really feel like it was something I could tap into. But it may be subconsciously because I didn't see anyone else quitting that toxic job. Some of the people I worked with are still there. So maybe it did subconsciously. I just didn't realize it.
Awesome. Do you think that it is impacting your ability to be so easy to change jobs in the years following the fact that you built up a very solid financial position?
Definitely. It definitely did. And me being willy-nilly or happy about being laid off when my colleagues are terrified, that's huge. And I did have, I think it was hundreds of thousands or at least $100,000 saved with those later layoffs where I was like, I'm just going to travel for a few months. See you whenever. It'll be fine. And my colleagues were scrambling and taking the first job that was offered to them or taking the first salary that was offered to them because they were afraid and didn't have that emergency fund. Definitely.
Okay, so for people that are listening, what you just said you really like to do research and you know what a job pays. What are some tips for asking for a raise, and where do people go to do this research? Because just, hey, I want a raise is a terrible way to ask for a raise. I know that, but what is a good way to ask?
So I actually don't usually ask for raises, just to give that background. I've gotten them at this job simply by saying, hey, this is my performance review. It looks like I'm checking all the boxes. We have a matrix. I'm doing really well. I think we should talk about a raise, but I don't think that's the perfect way to go about it. Also, I don't actually I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not staking my financial future on the little 2% raises that they're willing to give me for a lot of work. So I don't think I'm the perfect person to give that kind of advice, but I do think I have some good tips for if you are looking for a completely new job and looking for that completely new amount of money. Where I go to do research on those kinds of things are Glassdoor.com, which is amazing, not just for salary brackets because it's crowdsourced from actual people that work there, but also for reviews of different companies. So in the interview process, you can see if there's some serious red flags and it's a place that might be toxic and you don't want to work. Indeed.com also has some pretty good salary information, payscale.com. And then really just playing the game when you're interviewing. So I never have told people my previous salary. It's actually illegal to ask that in New York now because it usually holds a lot of people back, women and people of color specifically, of which I am both. So just playing the game, not letting them set a base minimum based on your previous salary, turning it around on them if you can. What salary are you looking for? Well, what's the range for the position? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I've definitely fallen victim to that question. What salary are you looking for? Oh, I'm looking for this. And they're like, oh, we were going to pay you $10,000 more, but we'll throw you a bone and go to your top level, which is still like $8,000 less than what we were going to pay. Yeah. So, that's great advice. Doing the research, is definitely, and I'd heard of Glassdoor, but I hadn't heard of PayScale. And I didn't know Indeed had that actual information on the site. So that's good to know. Sorry, Scott, go ahead.
Well, if I want to make $110,000 a year, in digital advertising, I believe, how does one get started in this career? Do you need a major with that, or is that?
You don't need a major. I went to liberal arts college, so we didn't have anything like communications or advertising as major options. And the one thing that seemed to be required across the board, if you want to get started in ad agencies, is that you need an internship. Mm-hmm. And to need an internship, you need to know somebody, which is extremely annoying. But my college had a pretty extensive alumni network that worked in ad agencies and marketing. And so I emailed all of them and I followed up every week until most of them got back to me and agreed to have a quick 30-minute call where I can pick their brain. Thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And I was surprised that a lot of people are very willing to help. They're very busy, so I do have to email them multiple times, but they're willing to help. And one of those people I emailed is actually the CEO of the first ad agency I ever worked at in New York. And she forwarded me to the HR department and they got me into their internship program after I interviewed.
No, I just ask because your trajectory in tripling your income in 7 years is remarkable. And it seems like this is not a dead-end career. This is a career that has a lot of upside, that has a lot of potential, and one that I haven't heard of anyone in any of our previous shows going through to get to six figures so quickly. So thank you for sharing all that.
Of course.
Okay, so what's going on in the future? What's your next step?
Next step is to try and to not rage quit. No, I'm kidding. Next step is to retire September 25th is the plan.
September 25th of this year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what does retirement look like? Sitting on the beach, sipping margaritas, playing video games?
For a little bit, yes. I have promised to keep posting weekly on my blog for at least a year. So blogging will be a part of it. I'm taking a retirement victory lap with my mom. So I quit on the 25th, or rather the 25th is my last day. Then I fly to Long Beach to celebrate at FinCon, aka my retirement party.
Woohoo!
Love it.
And then I'm flying from LAX to Australia and New Zealand for 6 weeks and just traveling around, seeing the Great Barrier Reef and all that wonderfulness before it's gone. And then I am flying back to New York quick to say hi to my partner and then going to Argentina for a month And then we're at the end of the year. We'll see what happens.
Awesome. What is that? What are the numbers that are associated with that retirement?
So I currently, like I said, spend about $18,000 a year. I'm projecting that I'll spend $20,000 in retirement to give a little buffer there. We'll see if that's accurate because there's a lot of guesstimates. We are planning to move about every 3 months after this whole retirement victory lap is over, between domestic US places and global places. So as far out as we have planned, in February of 2021, I'm going to spend a month in Thailand. So that'll help balance out my costs from when I'm going to Australia, New Zealand, and then also Argentina will help balance that out. But that's the plan for now. We're going to be vagabonds.
Awesome.
You say we, is that you and your mom or you and your partner?
Great question. A little bit of both.
Okay.
Mostly me and my partner. He's currently on a sabbatical, so we're trying to figure out what his next step is. Hopefully a remote job. But if not, it'll be more like me shuttling back and forth between different locations and seeing him and staying in our new apartment, wherever that may be. So it's a little up in the air, but we know that we're at least leaving this specific apartment at the end of July. I actually just booked a place in a different neighborhood in Seattle for us to live for the month of August. So the nomad life begins.
That's
Awesome.
really exciting. And like we said way back on, I think it was episode 11, what's the worst that could happen? The worst that could happen is your portfolio decreases enough that you have to go back and get a job. So your worst case scenario is everybody else's everyday life. What a hardship. Internet retirement police, if they come after you because you decided to go back to work, back off. IRP, back off. She can do what she wants. It's her life. She's living her best life.
For those listening, the Internet Retirement Police are make fun of name for all those people who say they're not retired. This isn't allowed. This isn't correct. The $18,000. No. Purple is retiring, and she did it, starting from $35,000 a year in Manhattan, and made conscious choices over the last 7 years. Through 8 years. To put herself in that position at 30 years old.
Yep.
There you go.
I'll
be 30
not
next
30.
year when you retire too.
I am not 30 and did not retire when I was 30. I was a stay-at-home mom for a while, but I'm working now because I choose to, and the Internet Retirement Police are welcome to email me at mindy@biggerpockets.com. I would love to delete your emails. That's, you know what? This is my best life. I get to teach people about money and real estate all day long, and it is fantastic. I just got the best letter from this woman who said that listening to other people being frugal weirdos is so helpful to her to get over the
frugal weirdos.
Yeah. She's like, yeah, we never spent any money. We didn't have a nice car, and we had, a really crappy car, and I don't want to spend money on a car because it's not important to me. Then don't. You have my permission to not spend money on anything that you don't want to spend money on. It's your money. Personal finance is personal. You get to make the choices that work best for you. We're just encouraging you to see another side of it. Look, you can make $106,000 a year and then spend every single dime. But there's another way to do it. You can earn $106,000 a year and spend $18,000 a year feeling not deprived, doing everything you want to do, and then you get to retire slightly ahead of schedule. What is this, 35 years ahead of schedule?
Just a little bit, yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
It's not bad.
Not bad. I think that's pretty flippin' amazing. We need to have your mom on, too.
Oh, goodness. She'd freak out. I'll ask her if you want.
Yes, please. Okay, Purple. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we move on to the famous four?
I'd love to talk about the wonders and possible downsides of remote work, which I've been doing for the last 3 years and which my partner has done for 8.
Oh, Oh, I didn't know you were working remotely. Okay, that's great. I have some to share because my husband worked remote for a long time. Well, how did you get your remote job?
So I actually did not know when I applied that it was remote, and since have encouraged HR to make that very prominent in the job postings because it's obviously a huge benefit.
Well, not only is it a huge benefit, but some people would find it to be a detractor. I know some people just aren't comfortable working from home. They can't function working from home. They don't actually do any work from home. I can't believe they wouldn't put that in there.
Well, and you applied for the position and moved to Seattle for the job to find out that it was remote. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh no, that was a separate job. That was the job right before this one.
Okay, good. Yeah. It's like, wait a second. That's
would
a
be
huge part
funny.
of the story. Okay, never mind.
I'm moving back.
Okay, fair enough. Well, tell us about work remote, how you're making it work.
So I never realized that this was actually a real option. I didn't know anyone that worked remotely besides my partner, and he was part of basically a remote company. So I thought if it's a remote company, cool, but otherwise this isn't really possible, especially in marketing. But that is not the case. And my company actually tries to cater to both the people that can and are more productive working from home and those that are not. So we actually do have a co-working space downtown that you can go to if you want to. And some people choose to every day because that's more motivational for them. Me, on the other hand, I have always found the open office, glass wall, weird spaces that ad agencies seem to think are so cool to be really distracting. I just want to get my work done, put my head down and crank it out. And so I usually would have headphones in. They're like, oh no, Purple, why aren't you hanging out with us? I'm like, because I'm trying to get my work done. People are laughing and talking and all this stuff. And also just being around that many people, I'm a serious introvert. So it would just be so draining to be like smiling all the time. I am happy, but I have to actively be smiling and looking excited. Oh, it was so tiring. So when I first started working remotely, I was like, this is sensational. Not only do I save commute time and time, like trying to look professional, quote unquote, packing my lunch every day, everything. I also just get way more done because I don't have any distractions and I can literally turn off my email and no one can pop by my cubicle to ask me just one quick thing. And it's amazing. So my productivity has gone through the roof. My stress levels have plummeted. My energy has increased just a little bit because my job, I still am required to work late often, but it's so much better working late when my partner's in the background making dinner instead of me being in an empty office feeling like I've chosen career over my loved ones or whatever, my crises that I had in New York. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I would caution that people should definitely think if it's right for them, because I know it's not for everyone, as you made that point.
Yeah, my husband had to shut everything out. And that was kind of difficult for me to learn, actually, because he started working from home right when our first baby was born. So now I'm at home and he's at home and I'm like, hey, can you just do this? And he's like, no, I'm working. I'm like, but you're right here. And he's like, no, I'm working. And I was the stay-at-home mom. And, however your experience is in my relationship, I was the stay-at-home mom. That was my job, to take care of the baby, because his job was to work for a company that paid him actual dollars. And this isn't a slam on stay-at-home moms or like any of that. I'm just saying that's how our situation shook out. So I'm like, hey, I want to take a shower. He's like, I'm working. So it was very difficult for me to figure that out. And once we got through that, I mean, that was a rough couple of months. Like, why can't you help? He's like, because I'm working. And it makes sense when you say it like that. But so that's a good point. And then also there are just some people who can't get stuff done. There are people, I know he used to work with a guy who said, I'm not going to work from home because I can't get anything done. I'm going to go paint the house or do laundry or, make dinner or whatever it is. And I'm not going to focus on my work. And being aware of that is very, very helpful. Look into yourself. Are you really going to get work done? If you're not, then a co-working space might be the best option for you.
Completely agree. It's not for everyone, but it's definitely for me, and I'm never going back.
It's definitely for me too. I'm in the office a couple of days. I get the best of both worlds. I'm in the office for a couple of days a week, and I'm at home a couple of days a week. And it's nice because I do live 40 minutes from work. So, driving all the way in can be, frankly, to me, it's an awesome experience because I go in early and I don't have a lot of traffic and I don't have children in the backseat fighting, and I can listen to podcasts or music. So it's, it works out for me. I like to get to see people, and I also like to get stuff done.
Makes sense.
I work in the office full time. So that's the nature of the job though. But yeah, I love that you've been able to find that work remote and make it work for you. So, but only 8 more months of even that.
Exactly. Countdown is real.
Do you plan on doing any sort of work after you have retired? Like maybe take on a contract here or there, or have you not thought about that yet?
I've thought about it. I'm not planning to, but given that I am trying to retire with such an aggressive timeline, I am open to it. I've run the models where if I can drop my spending to $16,500 by living in Thailand for a few extra months, or going to Mexico and hanging out on a beach for a little while, and then not have a spending ceiling at all, aka I can spend a little more in upmarket years, I would have survived the last, I think that it's 150 years of investment data, including the Great Depression. So if I'm able to do that, it will all work out. But if I need to, if things are going really poorly, if sequence of returns is just smacking me over the head, I'm open to making some more money. But it's more out of necessity. Though I may change my mind after I have a couple years of chilling and recovering from this almost decade of working really hard.
Did you just say you ran this model over against 150 years of investing data? You really do like research and spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I do. I can't take full credit for that though, because that's just Fire Sim, which is absolutely amazing. If you guys haven't checked it out instead of Fire Calc.
Yeah, where is this?
cfiresim.com.
CSEE?
See the letter firesim.com.
Okay, we'll put a link to
you
that.
Guys. Yeah.
Yes, that would be great. We'll put a link to that in the show notes, which can be found at biggerpockets.com/moneyshow111 or moneyshow111. Okay, Purple, it's that time. Are you ready for the famous 4?
I'm ready.
These are the same 4 questions we ask of all of our guests. Number 1, what is your favorite finance book?
Definitely Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez, because I read it when I first started getting into FIRE, and it completely blew my mind in that thinking of money as the time that you're giving up for that money. I couldn't even believe it. And it made me realize that money is way more precious because it's not about these pieces of paper. It's literally my life that I'm giving away.
Yeah, that book was like now, 20 or 40 years after it's been released, you're like, well, of course. But at the time, that was like, oh my God, you're so right. Excellent book.
Love it. Great book. What was your biggest money mistake?
Oof. Listening to other people about what my life should be. Specifically, my second year in New York, I was living in a really crappy apartment with less than ideal roommates. I was not very happy. And so people were like, oh, you need a pick-me-up. You should buy this purse subscription. You should buy these high heels. You should fly business class. And I was like, yeah, I guess I should do that. That might make me happy. So I did all of that. Over Thanksgiving, decided to go visit a friend in New Mexico. And I was like, oh, but I also have a friend in Chicago, so I should stop there. And also I should buy all of these flights for business class. I bought a business class flight to London for a weekend. Like, I went wild. And I did all of that and realized, why am I doing this? I'm not more happy, and I have less money. And why am I listening to these people telling me what like my Manhattan city lifestyle should be? So I think that's my biggest money mistake. It might not be the one that cost me the most money, but it was definitely a big mistake that derailed me a little bit and made me not listen to myself, which I should have.
No, that's a unique piece of advice that we haven't gotten for an answer to that question, and a great one. So I think that I think that's a great mistake. If that's the way to put it.
And now you're back on track. And would you be where you are if you hadn't made those mistakes? Would you be as appreciative of where you are?
Probably not. I think you got to try out different avenues to realize they're not for you.
I think you're so right. What is your best piece of advice for people who are just starting out?
Don't be afraid to be weird. Figure out what you want, what you don't want, and live intentionally. Do exactly that. For example, I don't really like concerts, but I love flying first class. So I got into travel rewards to make the latter possible. And if a friend says they want to go to a concert, I'm like, I'm good, but do you want to go to like this free Zumba class tomorrow? And just not being afraid to say exactly what you want to do.
That's
Awesome.
So good. That is so good, because so many people are so afraid of what other people are going to think of them. And Coco Chanel, I think this is my second favorite quote. Coco Chanel said, "I don't care what you think about me. I don't think about you at all. All these people that are judging you for not doing this or that, you don't think about them."
And they'll judge you regardless. So even if you're trying to please them, so you might as well do what you want.
Boom.
All right, time for the last question of the Famous Four. What is your favorite joke to tell at free Zumba parties?
Well, we're too busy dancing to tell jokes. So I know it's usually to tell at parties. And I had a hard time with this because I don't usually tell jokes at parties because I have a pretty dark sense of humor. But I saw this one online the other day and it made me laugh out loud. So it's, older people like to tease me at weddings saying, "You'll be next." But they stopped after I started doing the same to them at funerals.
Oh.
Double meaning because my partner and I aren't getting married. So I was like, that's a great comeback.
Yeah. Love it.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Purple, where can people find out more about you?
You can find me at my website, apurplelife.com. It has all the links to my social media and how to contact me over email. Hit me up.
She's very good at responding. Remember how she said she would go and remind people over and over again when she was trying to get that internship? The reason she's here is because she is much better at correspondence than I am. I wanted to tell your story. No, I wanted to tell your story. And there's a lot of stories I want to tell. And I'm very, very glad that we were able to get you on. Thank you so much for your time today. This was a lot of fun.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing your story. We'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay, Scott, what did you think of Purple's story?
I thought it was great. She's very well organized. You can tell that her dedication to spreadsheets and optimization is a key player, both, probably leading to some of her career success, certainly leading to her improved ability to spend very little and enjoy life. And she knows what she wants, and that's a winning formula. So good for her.
Don't forget her love of research. That is very key to her income success, I think, is not only knowing what her position is worth, but knowing that she doesn't want to settle for something less.
Absolutely. Yeah. The research is on every front, just like the other stuff. Researching her job, researching her spending, where to go and live that has the best opportunities for her, for all those things. You could tell the research is going in for where she's going to live in retirement, whether it's Thailand or Australia or New Zealand, and how that impacts her choices. So she really knows what she's doing. That research, has probably taken her countless hours, but it saved her 35 years.
Oh my goodness. That's like the best soundbite I've ever heard, Scott.
Yeah. So maybe she put a couple hundred hours, or maybe 1,000 hours, or I don't know how much over the course of the last couple of years in optimizing all these fronts. 35 years of her life back.
Yeah. You know what? That's a good trade-off.
Yeah.
Okay. I am Mindy Jensen, and he is Scott Trench, and we will see you later.